we actually had a couple of like voice acting agencies that wanted to be the ones to cast everyone and find the cast for everyone. And, it was like, nah, we want to make it public. We want to give people a shot to, play this part.
That's awesome. And another thing I want to call out too, that I think is really important, that I think a lot of developers or teams don't necessarily think about, because they might see like it's maybe an unrealistic, but I think it's good to do this, is you really looked at it from a perspective of the IP as a whole, and what else could this lead to? Now, with your background, I think it might be a little bit more apparent for you to think in terms of, hey, there could be a Netflix animated series around this, or something like that, right? But I mean, to the point, you're not just making a game. You're also thinking about all those other opportunities. I mean, let's say merchandising could easily be like action figures or what have you, right? And I think a lot of people kind of limit themselves by not thinking that way. It doesn't mean those things have to happen or whatever, but if what I'm trying to get at here is, if you plan big, if you fall short of that because you went a little big, you're at least going to probably be in line of being better off than if you weren't planning there at all.
Exactly. I mean, like, and at the same time, you have to build the vision. You have to build what you want it to be. Because at some point, if you meet up with a distributor now, whatever it is you're doing, and they're ready to put money behind you, they're going to want to know a 10-year plan. They're going to want to know how they can keep making money from what they're doing. And so, like, I'm always a bigger picture kind of guy. You know what I mean? I need to know, we've already planned out the 4 games in the series. We've already planned out the series for the animated shows. Like, we want to have all of that prepared, so that when we walk into a room and we meet with whatever company that we meet with, when it gets time with the demo and, it's time to sell it out for a real full version of the game, that they see the plan, they see the vision, and it's undeniable. Yeah. And when it's undeniable, they'll be behind it and they'll support it.
Yeah. And that's key, everyone, because in those situations like that, investors, publishers, or whoever is going to, put time and energy behind your project, if they can't really see that vision that you see, or because think about it, anything that they're doing is a form of a risk, and if there's not a way that they can get a clear idea of that vision, we've talked about it in numerous episodes before, but if they can't get that full picture or whatever, or think that like, oh, you just want to make one game and be done with it, well, it's not going to be worth their time or worth that risk. So
exactly.
You couldn't have said it any better.
Thank you.
Of course. All right. Well, before we move on, I'm just curious too. I mean, we covered how the voice actor auditions were really helpful, and also, other things that you could have done differently. Was there anything else in general that really stood out in terms of what you would have done differently with this campaign?
No, I mean, honestly, I enjoyed the process. I learned a lot through the process. So for the lessons alone, I'll say I'm glad that it turned out the way it did. So it was worth it in the end.
All right.
For sure.
Awesome. Well, I want to go a little bit further now and change things up about your post-campaign plans, because we know that you're really busy with this, and obviously other things, but especially this, because I want to lead off with, from the awareness and support that you generated, with the campaign. I understand you were also able to secure funding from a private investor to complete the demo as it was fully intended. That's your exact quote.
Yes.
So I'm just wondering, could you share a little bit more? And you mentioned it very briefly earlier, but could you share more about how this happened with this private investor? And you said the campaign was a success. You have a private investor, so I think I'll get into that a little bit moment with like funding and stuff. But what's the story about this? How this happened and getting this investor?
Yeah, so I'm gonna keep them anonymous as I described this. I'm gonna tread lightly because we want to make, when we actually release the demo, we want to make their announcement kind of in tandem to that. So we want to keep down the low for now. Mm-hmm. But I'll just say that, you know, if I had known that that this wasn't okay, as far as one thing that I would have done differently, there is one thing. If I would have known that this was an option to begin with, then we probably would have never done the campaign. But like I said, though, everything happens. Like I honestly feel like everything happens for a reason. And I have incredible colleagues who have been, watching me and have been following me for a very long time. You never know who's watching you. That's another lesson.
Yep.
And because of this, they understood my vision and supported it and was like, we want to make it happen. We want to help you make it into reality. So in the end, the campaign actually kind of served as a way for us to get the IP seen, but also to kind of track the hype behind the project, which kind of further influenced the investor to come on board. So in a way, everything happened for a reason. So, if we had not done the campaign, maybe the investor wouldn't have seen the hype behind the project as much and wouldn't have been as willing to invest into it. So, it just all worked out.
So one thing I wanted to point out about that too is a lot of times when people are, thinking about crowdfunding and such, they're more so of thinking about it as just as a means to get funding, but they're not necessarily looking at it from a perspective of creating awareness, which is probably more secondary, but it's still really important. And to your point that you made, if it wasn't for the crowdfunding campaign, there's a good chance that you probably would have never been seen by this private investor. Is that safe to say?
Yeah. Or at least there's a safe chance that the potential of the project wouldn't have been noticed by the private investor, to see the people's response to it showed that it was worth the investment. So, I think, without that, I think either way, it was the final piece, that was needed for them to make action. And hey, it worked out.
Yeah. And in this example with Mikhail, obviously we're talking about a private investor, but that could be anyone. Like you said earlier, you never know who's watching, and whether it's an investor, a publisher, or even a small group of fans that are become like loyalists or brand advocates, like you still never know who's watching. And I think it's important to say too, though, it is even if you're running a campaign that looks like it's not trending to its goal or it's kind of struggling or whatever, that's still another means, another channel in which you can get out there that typically people probably wouldn't have seen you. So again, I think it's
exactly.
Yeah, it's important to look at the other, if you want to put it more analytically or whatever, like KPIs that are associated with your campaign, your key performance indicators, that it's not just about money or the bottom line at the end of the day. Sometimes, I mean, that's not the only thing that matters, right? Is I guess what I'm trying to say.
It's so many other factors. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, then, in light of receiving funding from this private investor, how did this change your post-campaign plans?
The good thing is that it didn't really change them much. Honestly, the plan was to make the demo with the budget in mind, and we can do that, and we're in the process of doing that. Besides the small logistical changes here and there, as far as making sure contracts are signed on time, and this information's been sent out, all this kind of stuff. Those few slight adjustments are very minor in regards to the whole process of making the game. So everything's on course. And, what the best part, I think that we were really excited about, coming into, especially with an investor. And I know a couple of people had questions about this. They thought, oh, well, if there's an investor, does that mean that, you guys won't have complete control in making it, the way that you intended at first? And that's a valid question. But the best part about this relationship is that we do. They literally pretty much said, we want to give you the money to make the game.
Nice.
So make the game, so it worked out. It really just and it worked out in the best way, to where we knew that we could as we said in the statement, make it as we fully intended. So it's great.
Awesome. Now, I'm also curious too, since you received, the funding from the private investor, did you still use the funds that you acquired from the campaign backers for additional goals or let's say, other things that might not have been in the scope of the campaign?
We considered it. We definitely considered it, especially leading up towards the end of the campaign. And we discussed the pros and cons of doing so. But then in the end, we just decided that as a team and thinking of the bigger picture, that it would just be better for everyone involved if we just refunded everything. The money contributed by our backers just kind of showed that there's action behind this game. And that in and of itself was kind of enough, we just needed the money we needed, the budget that we needed to make the game. We didn't need anything more than that. So anything more than that just didn't feel necessary. But on top of the private funding, we could have had more money if we had taken that.
Yeah.
But that would have came with so much more responsibility on our part as well. That could have distracted from the process of making the game, making it right. So we just kind of weighed we're being given an opportunity to make this game with no distractions. So we should probably take that opportunity so that we know the game will be done exactly how we want it to be done. So we gave it all back, and but we made sure that we told all the people that backed that during the process of us making the demo, they'll be the first to play each build. So there's still a perk behind it, because we didn't want that support to go completely unrewarded. We wanted to show that you guys stepped up, right? Regardless of how it turned out. You guys stepped up, and we appreciate that, and we want to show our appreciation. So they'll be the first to play the demo leading up to its public release later on this year.
That's awesome. Now, two things I want to point out that you guys did that I think is very important. One, while obviously you have all this money and stuff, and of course we could all use more money, right? Especially with the project and future goals and things like that. But what the key thing I think you guys did there was call out to that this would mean more responsibility equating to distractions. And if there's one thing that prevents anybody, whether it's teams or whatever, in any industry or in any form of life, it's going to be distractions. We always complain about distractions, right? So I think it's really important that you guys really thought that through that process, while you're in a really good position, it was just better to focus on the goal and the project at hand. Because, again, too, I think as part of it, one of your reasons for doing this was to limit some of the things that you needed to do for fulfillment and logistics and things like that. Now, the second thing I wanted to point out is, even though you thought, oh, the backers are probably going to love it, we got everything we needed and now we can go forward with the project as intended, but you didn't just give them their money back or refund the money back and left it at that. Because I think what you guys identified is simply, if we just did that, then some people might interpret that in a bad way, where it's like, oh, well, our money, that they're not really part of the project anymore. So I think it's great that you took the extra step and initiative to still show them that, no, you are a part of this. You're the reason why this is happening now. It's just a circumstance which isn't very common, but you're called out that they are still the reason why this is happening, and you're still making them a part of it. Still, being empathetic of, hey, if we just gave back the money and called it at that and say, oh, we'll keep you updated, that wasn't enough. So again, making sure that message was conveyed to them is still very important, because I think it says a lot, because even if projects are funded, that doesn't necessarily mean that other things down the road that can't turn if you don't call out to those things. So again, exactly.
and we're already, discussing in the